What's going on, everyone? So welcome to my latest video. This is part of a series where I focus on a specific director and rank that director's work from worst to best. Done such directors in the past such as Sofia Coppola, David Fincher, David Lynch, Spike Lee, many more directors. You guys can check out those directors I just mentioned, as well as those many more directors on my director playlist down below. But guys, you clicked on this video, so you know it. This time around, I'm focused on Kathryn Bigelow's films and ranking them from worst to best. Now, do keep in mind, this will not include any films that she co-directed, any music videos, short films, TV shows, none of that. Just specifically speaking, feature-length films that she's done. And as of filming this video, it is September 2023. And as of said month and year, she has done 9 films. So I'll be ranking them from 9 being her worst to 1 being the best. And of course, my humble opinion. And I'll be very curious to see your guys' ranking of Kathryn Bigelow's films in the comment section down below. But guys, enough exposition. Let's get started. So kicking the list off with number 9, we have The Weight of Water. This movie was very difficult to find, and after watching it, I can 100% see why. It's not a good movie. It is buried for a reason. There is 100% a reason why Kathryn Bigelow is like, I don't really want people to watch this movie because it's not good. It is a mess of a movie. It's not entertaining. It's not even interesting, which is a shame because when you actually read the premise, it's like, this could be good, but the execution is just not good. It's not there. I like the performances, I will say that, but other than that, this is just not a good movie. I found it very disappointing, and the only reason I would say watch it is if you're like myself and trying to watch all of Kathryn Bigelow's movies. That's it. That's the only reason. That's why it's my number 9. Next up, my number 8, we have Blue Steel. Talk about a film that had potential. I really dug the first half of this film. In fact, if you paused the first half and said to me, how am I liking it? I would say, I really like it. This is definitely going to be a really good film. But unfortunately, the second half took a huge dip in quality. And I also just really wasn't a big fan of the themes and messages, specifically of the third act. It just felt very sloppy by the end. But again, it did have such a strong start that I can't help but say, it's kind of mixed, but at the same time, like a light recommendation. Not a bad movie, though. Not a bad movie. It's just something that, unfortunately, by the end, I just wasn't as invested. But that first half... But yeah, that's why Blue Steel is my number 8. Next up, my number 7. This is a movie that's going to be on a lot of people's higher up in terms of the ranking. And my number 7 is Near Dark. This is a movie that combines many different genres. And I will say that I did have fun with that. The fact that it's combining, the vampire genre as well as the Western genre in a lot of ways, coming of age. There's just a lot of things that's combining. And I do think that it makes it for an investing experience, mostly. But other than that, I just really wasn't invested of the film as a whole. Elements for sure, as I just mentioned with the genre splicing. But I just found myself to be very distant to watching this movie. Again, maybe at some point I'll watch it down the line. I don't know what the future foretells, but as of the filming of this video, I just can't really see myself rewatching it. Similar to Blue Steel, it just might be a one-and-done type deal. But I am glad I finally saw Near Dark. I can see why many people love it, but for me, it's kind of mixed bag. But again, I see the appeal, and that's why it's my number 7. Next up, my number 6, we have Point Break. So Point Break, fun fact, is pretty much the reason why we have the Fast and Furious, the first entry of that franchise. Because you look at the premise of Fast and Furious and you look at the premise of Point Break, and they're very, very similar. Obviously, the Fast and Furious garnered a huge, unnecessary franchise, and Point Break didn't. It did garner a remake, which I did not see, but I will say that, holy cow, Point Break, the original one, so much fun. I had a blast watching this. I think that what's especially good is that the two leads have such really good chemistry. I liked also the storytelling. I thought that was really effective. Just an overall very well done, fun film. I can definitely see myself rewatching it, and that's why I had this higher up on the list at my number 6. Next up, my number 5, the opposite of fun. We have my number 5, which is K-19, The Widowmaker. So this is an interesting film because I watched it probably at least half a dozen times as a young teenager, and that was over a decade ago. So I decided that I was going to rewatch this film, and I watched it again a couple of days ago, and again, it had been over a decade since I've seen this film, and I gotta say, I liked it, I definitely did, but holy cow, what a dour experience. Like, it is such a serious-minded film that you can't help but just, after watching it, just being like, oh man, that was draining. But I mean that in the best way possible because Kathryn Bigelow's directing here is just so good. I really liked what she did with this film. I really liked how you felt the claustrophobic nature of the submarine along with these characters. And also the music choices I think were effective. I did like the cinematography and how dour it looked to match the tone. Just overall, a lot of stuff I liked. I wasn't a big fan of the accents from Liam Neeson and Harrison Ford, although I liked the performances, but I didn't like the accents that much. And there were a couple scenes that did feel a bit repetitive. I don't want to get into any spoilers in case you don't know the story of this film, but there were a couple repetitive moments in the, I would say, second act. But overall, rock solid film. I like it. I do think it's quite underrated, and I gotta say, I definitely would recommend this film, especially if you like history films. It's not for everyone though, because at the end of the day, it is a very, very dour experience, but I liked it, and yeah, that's why it's my number 5. Next up, my number 4, another dour film, we have Detroit. So Detroit I only saw once, and I saw it in theaters 6 years ago, but that experience stuck with me, and to this day, I have so many images of that film seared in my brain. This is a very, very effective, hard to watch film. Again, I've only seen it once. I don't know if I'll rewatch it, but let me just say this. This is a necessity to view. It's really, really hard to watch again, but the acting is so raw, so visceral. The directing is great. It's just an overall very, very well put together film. I can see why some people might not want to watch it because, again, it is very difficult to watch and it is dealing with a lot of social issues that are important and handled delicately, yes, but still the things that people might not want to talk about or might not want to experience on the big screen, which does explain why it didn't do too well at the box office at the time. But I still say it's a must-see watch because, again, it's very important. You can see all the passion from the filmmakers. On top of that, the directing, again, as I mentioned, is really, really something that I have to emphasize. She did a great, great job directing this film. Yeah, watch it. Please watch it. That's why Detroit is my number 4. Next up, my number 3. This was a film that, going into it, I wasn't sure if I was going to like it, but as you can see, because it's my number 3, I actually loved it. My number 3 is Strange Days. This was really something. It is a high concept that at the time was a high concept, but now it's not so much a high concept because a lot of the things in this film are kind of a reality. But it's something that blends the 90s along with what they envisioned the future would look like in a way that just is so effective. It's over 2 hours, but I gotta say, I was consistently engaged by this film. I really like the acting. Ralph Fiennes did a great job in the lead role. Again, Kathryn Bigelow's directing here is quite strong, and James Cameron, from what I understand, helped with some of the ideas of this film, and it shows because the ideas are quite effective. The world building is immersive. Just an overall very, very effective film. Criminally underrated. You don't hear people talk about this film, and they should because it's really, really good, especially if you like sci-fi films such as myself. Watch it. Watch Strange Days. That's why it's my number 3. Next up, we get into the nitty-gritty, the 2 films that got her Oscar nominations, and this one in particular is what got her Oscar win. And that's right, you guys probably guessed it. My number 2 is The Hurt Locker. The Hurt Locker is similar to Detroit. It's an effective film. It is hard-hitting. It's gritty. It's also incredible, the behind-the-scenes of this film, because from what I understand, it was like hundreds of hours of footage that the editors then had to splice together and make a 2-hour and 10-minute film. Yeah, that's incredible. The editing team behind this film, commendable stuff. But Kathryn Bigelow's directing here, really, really stellar. You really feel as though you're with the lead character, which is played by Jeremy Renner, and I gotta say, Jeremy Renner is excellent. I like the score. I think that it's really good at setting the mood, and just an overall experience that in terms of a must-see, I would say it's high up there, but I will say this, similar to Detroit, it is kind of a draining film. It is. Like, I'm sitting here talking about it right now, and I'm like, oh, yeah, that's so hard to watch. But it's a necessity viewing. It really is, because it does kind of give you at least what I envision this type of environment to be like. And I gotta say, Kathryn Bigelow, once again, I know I keep saying it, but her directing in this is so good. Watch The Hurt Locker. Watch it. There's a reason why it won Best Picture. Was it my favorite film in 2009? No. But I can 100% see why it won Best Picture. And yeah, that's my number 2. Next up, my number one. This film changed me forever when I saw it in early 2013. And my number one is Zero Dark 30. So Zero Dark 30 was one of the first films where I noticed sound mixing and how the third act in particular had it where there wasn't a score really. The third act didn't really have a score, and so you really were focused on the gun effects that would crop up, the whispers, the heavy breathing, or the lack thereof, stuff like that. And this film's directing really emphasizes how, hey, this is raw, this is gritty, this is something that we're going to have it as you as viewers are going to try to put things together and figure things out for yourself. And by that, I don't mean that it's like nonlinear storytelling or that it is like an art house film. I just simply mean that the politics of this film, you can look at either way. You really can. Or you can look at it as like a middle of the road type approach on the subject matter. Either way, the fact that Kathryn Bigelow went that route and didn't have it where it's heavy-handed on either side is commendable because you really do feel as though this is a filmmaker at the top of her form. That's why I have this as my number one, because I really do believe, I don't know if Kathryn Bigelow's coming out with anything else, but I really do believe that this is her masterpiece. This is the film that when I think of Kathryn Bigelow, I immediately think about this film. Hurt Locker too, but first and foremost, Zero Dark 30. It is over 2.5 hours long, similar to the Hurt Locker, similar to K-19. Not an easy watch, similar to Detroit, not an easy watch, but it is a necessity viewing. This is a great, great film, and it's got an ending that I found to be heartbreaking, and to this day, just hits me every single time. Zero Dark 30, it's my number one. I love it. But yeah, guys, what I try to do at the end of these videos is talk a little bit about the director and if I like them or not. And I gotta say, Kathryn Bigelow, I'm a big fan of. I think that she is a really, really good director. I love the fact that she does so many different genres. Don't get me wrong, after the Hurt Locker, she kind of got pigeonholed into, doing like these war based on true story type films. But I gotta say, I mean, she does such a great job of having some variety to them. The only thing that all three of those films have in common, Detroit, Hurt Locker, and Zero Dark 30, is that they're hard to watch. They're not exactly films that you can watch once a month. They are hard to watch films, but everything else about the films are all unique based on what the story is calling for. And that's what I love about Kathryn Bigelow. She has a unique voice where she looks at each project and she gives it her all. And I really am a fan of her directing, even though some of her films didn't really necessarily hit for myself. I really do admire the fact that she is a versatile director. She tries to do every single genre, and it's commendable. So yeah, I like Kathryn Bigelow. Again, I don't know if she's making any films, anytime soon, but if she is, I'll be there day one. But yeah, guys, Kathryn Bigelow, that is my ranking. Let me know your ranking down below. And guys, as always, thank you very much for watching. With the subscription, notification bell, follow me on Letterboxd, and I will catch you guys later.